When many of us fell in love with this space, it wasn't about building faster or cheaper systems. It was about building better systems, resilient systems that couldn't be corrupted, in which you didn't have to trust anybody else. We designed protocols built to survive nation-state level attacks, and somewhere in the scramble to hit a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, we've started making compromises we swore we'd never make. When I first got into the space, one of the things that was discussed all of the time was civil forfeiture. Stories of people in routine traffic stops having the majority of their net worth seized with no real recourse and with a burden of overturning it entirely on them, with a system that has zero incentive to roll back the results. This was one of the early issues that made self-custody so visceral for me. You can always be threatened with state violence or legal action, but ultimately you own your assets and you make the decision of what to do with them. Not your keys, not your coins. Fast forward to today, and upgradable contracts with central controls are becoming the norm. Trusted third parties and off-chain actors are routinely encouraged, even in environments where it's not just liveness at risk, but the security of the protocol itself. We're handing over control, not just of our assets, but the future of this space, all for an incremental dollar or another bit of institutional buy-in. Crypto is founded in a movement that predates both Ethereum and Bitcoin. The early cypherpunks recognized the importance of freedom and privacy in the digital age. Bitcoin and Ethereum turned those ideals into decentralized, permissionless systems that give individuals real sovereignty, systems that give people explicit guarantees that cannot be broken. This industry was started because we believed in building a system that could not be corrupted. It's why Bitcoin exists. It's what gave us the birth of true DeFi. Immutability, censorship resistance, and permissionlessness aren't just buzzwords. These are the only unique properties that makes crypto fundamentally different. If we keep making these trade-offs, we're going to end up with a system that's even worse than the one we're trying to replace. To this day, the founding principles still matter. It's the one thing that makes crypto crypto, and we should design systems that embrace that. Like Vitalik said in his Make Ethereum Cypherpunk Again post, make at least part of the Ethereum ecosystem actually be the permissionless, decentralized, censorship-resistant, open-sourced ecosystem that we originally came here to build. This was never about scalability at the expense of security. It was never about adoption at the expense of sovereignty. It was about building a system that cannot be shut down. We need to get back to that. Stop chasing the short-term hype and build things that will last. The problem is that most people in crypto today just don't care. I've seen this firsthand and heard the same from many founders and people within the industry. Like all good cultures, we're running the cyclical nature of humans on hyperspeed. Hard times in 2008, with banks failing and a global financial crisis as a backdrop, created some really strong protocols, some of the most fundamentally transformative we'll see in our lifetimes. These protocols have given us some extremely good times. As we've seen this industry grow from a few passionate cypherpunks to something at the front and center of the largest stages in the world, including the upcoming election, these good times have made people forget what got us here and why these were designed the way they were. Now we have an ever-increasing number of weak protocols, and those weak protocols on a long enough time horizon are going to create some very hard times. This is where we are today. We've experienced good times, and we've become complacent. Designing weak systems and sacrificing our principles in order to extract incremental value, we've gone from a space where it was about resilience to a space where it's about gains, without considering the cost. We're shipping trust-based systems because it's easier. We're making design decisions with zero regard for actual security. We're sacrificing everything to get institutional buy-in, to get what we view as consumer adoption being viable now. We're building weak systems and calling them strong. We're rationalizing meme coins as the future of financial freedom, and we're letting the same centralized controls that cause systemic collapse in our financial system seep into crypto. I was there sitting in the audience 6 years ago when Vitalik got up and called Craig Wright a scammer. He publicly got up and said, "Why is this fraud allowed to speak at this conference?" We all stood up and clapped. We've lost that energy lately, and we need to get it back. Don't build centralized crypto products because it's easier. Look at what's happened in our industry. GOX, multi-chain, FTX, every single one of these disasters comes back to one thing: central controls. They didn't collapse because their technology failed. They collapsed because their structure failed. You can't build secure, resilient systems on centralized foundations. You're building something that's waiting to break. These aren't even black swans at this point, they're inevitabilities. If you're building a system with backdoors, if you're making temporary trade-offs for security, you're building something that's destined to fail. Time has proven that secure protocols win long-term. For over a decade, we've heard about each new Bitcoin and how their faster, cheaper, better version was going to displace it. And yet here we are. Bitcoin is $1 trillion asset and sits at almost 60% dominance across the entire industry. How many bad VCs, failed YC startups, and predatory market makers told you that Terra was the future of finance, that 20% yields out of nothing were entirely sustainable, while they milked the run-up for billions? How many told you that the trade-offs multi-chain made for interop were worth it because it was fast, cheap, and easy? On a long enough time horizon, there's only one way to win, as a protocol and as an industry. Play long-term games. Have to do the hard thing. We have to design systems that can survive anything, that don't rely on central control. Must think adversarially and build immutably. Anybody can build something that works when the sun is shining, but what happens when it's not? What happens in dark times when the stakes are high and the entire system is on the line? The only systems that survive are the ones designed with an adversarial mindset. Build immutable protocols that can last forever. Stop compromising on the things that make crypto, crypto. We can decide on which path we want to take. Which one of these do you choose? Because if you look at any industry, those that build for the long term, the protocols, systems, or companies that build the hard way towards a vision bigger than themselves, those are the ones that endure. This isn't about building, it's about building better. We can't keep justifying fragile systems. We can't keep pretending that building for institutional approval will get us where we want to go, because we're building a trap. Let's get back to why we got into this space in the first place. Build things that cannot be corrupted. Build things that will change the world. The trade-offs we're making right now are insane. This entire industry started from a small group of pseudo-anarchists who realized that rather than the trust and regulation-based systems that had continuously failed us, we could just use math. And that system worked. That idea was amazing, and it's gotten us to where we were today. We didn't ask for permission. We didn't need approval for anybody else. We built a system that was better, and the better system won. And now, at the last mile here, as we're going into this final leg, we're starting to compromise everything that we've built for the small incremental bit of institutional adoption earlier. Rather than trying to compromise our systems for that earlier adoption, we should be building systems that are resilient, that institutions cannot not adopt. And when they do, the end result is a better financial system in a more financially free world. Thank you.